recall when $1 or $2
was a tip that would see you through. Showed the waitress or barkeep you cared for the service and smiles they shared.
But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament. Inflation's rising, costs ain't cheap, but the guilt trip's laid on thick and deep. If you don't tip the suggested amount, they look at you like you just flunked the test. But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament. Whatever happened to good old cash, tucked in an apron, a discreet little dash? Now it's all calculated, tracked and tallied. The human touch is getting awfully shallow. But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament. But now it's a digital screen with percentages never in between. 15, 20, or even 25%. It's enough to make a working man lament.
It's enough to make a working man limit. Oh, no, sorry. Sorry, my song. It's time for POS Unsensored. We're back after about a 4-week hiatus. Travel, business work, all kinds of stuff going on. But we're back. It's Olympic time. And today we're going to talk about how we should have no major failures when we're doing our POS systems for our merchants across the United States. And it wouldn't be POS Uncensored if it wasn't Mr. Matt Proctor across the town and next to me on the left-hand side of the screen. Matt, let me tell you, the Olympics are going on, the Olympic fear. Yep. I've got my U.S. hat on. I've been wearing it as often as I can. Are you caught by the Olympic fever?
Oh, of course I am, buddy. I was watching Ledecky yesterday, just dominate again. The 1500 was just amazing. So it's in my house, it's a big deal. Every single day, every night, we're watching it. And not knowing what happened during the day is the challenge for me. Because
I just try to watch it. I just watch it live. It's on my other screen. It's currently paused so I can stay focused, but I just watch it live. I keep it playing in the background and keep it going because I don't have I have way too many social media. The alert, in fact, I'm kind of worried while we're recording this, I'm going to get the alert on my phone about who wins the all around.
Flip your phone over until after we're done.
All right. So here's what we're talking today. But I've been inspired by the Olympics because you don't want, when you get to your performance, you spend 4 years getting there and you get the opportunity of your lifetime. You're going to dive into this well. You're going to do your gymnastic routine. You're doing your rifle gun shooting. You're doing archery, whatever you're doing. You have one moment in time. And if you have a major failure, you're going to feel like you wasted the last 4 years. And that's somewhat true when happens when you get the opportunity to sell a point of sale. Specifically, we've been focusing on Cluster. Recently, we announced that you need 8 point of sales to be able to, by the December 1st, if you sell 8 clusters, you're going to get to go to Mexico on the dime of Cluster and PayProTech. And that sounds like a pretty good thing. But if you have major failures, it's going to set you back, and you may get to 6, you may get to 4, you may get to 0 if you don't do that. And we're going to talk about what are those major failures when you get the opportunity to make a presentation and board a new restaurant with Cluster POS. What are some of those major failures we've seen where either hinders and slows down, or sometimes just kaboomies all these sales? So we're going to make sure we do that. So I'm going to start out, and then I'm going to let Matt do it, and I'll let Matt and we'll go back and forth for a little bit, and we can make comments on it. Number one here that I've seen is making sure the merchant Cluster does their pay at the table and their order at the table in 2 different devices. And they use a Windows device, currently a Surface Go 3 that the merchant needs to go and get. A lot of times we're reimbursing the merchant if we need to, but they need to get that Surface Go 3. I'm going to be here. Cluster will even say You can use an iPad. No, we don't do that. You can use an Android. No, we don't do that. It needs to be the pay at the table or the order at the table device. Is that it's a great experience because it's a full station. It does everything all the other stations does, but we need to make sure it's on the right device. And then the pay at the table is a separate device. It's an A920 Pro currently, and you're going to be able to, bring it out to the table to do the pay at the table, but it's two different devices. And if you don't set that expectation, some merchants get a little finicky when something happens different than they think it is, because some places, I was at a very high class restaurant here in Indianapolis yesterday, and they brought their toast pay in the win and order the table right to there. I did not know that they had rolled that out. They rolled it out at All-Star. They rolled it out at All-Star 2 weeks before the All-Star game. And I was talking to our guy who has been there for 31 years at St. Elmo's, which is one of my favorite things about going.
Name?
Huh? It is. Oh, I can't remember right now, but I know Mark? Paul. No, it's doesn't matter. But okay. But my point was here's a high-end steakhouse, one of probably our top ranked steakhouse here in Indianapolis, and they were using
You can say the name. Everyone watching this knows. Every show you've ever seen, they talk about it.
It's St. Elmo's, and we got the shrimp cocktail because you don't go and not get it, and it burns the back of your nose the first time you do it, no matter what, no matter how. And so all that, but just set the expectation, because merchants, you need to make sure the merchants understand what they're getting, how it's going to work. Here's the thing. I think in certain restaurants, the different pay at the table and the order table, because I think the bigger screen, I watched it last night. I go to order my stuff and I knew exactly what I wanted. And I started going, and he said, slow down. Because he needed to get to the modifier screens and he wasn't able to go fast enough. And it's a little, I think toast is like a 6.5 inch diagonal screen. And so he needed me to slow down a little bit because he couldn't tap fast enough. But if he had been on a 11-inch screen, which is what we're most commonly putting in, it would have been a little easier because all the stuff shows up a little faster for them. So I think on that side, the order is better. But if they're expecting what they've seen with Toast and just one device, Cluster has gone a different strategy. It works when the expectations are set and you get the right hardware and the right expectation. That is, for me, don't mess it up. No major failures. Don't tell them that they're going to get a pay at the table and order the table all on one device. Don't get them the wrong device. Don't tell them they can use their iPads if they have, they've been using a iPad-based system, and hey, we'll just use those and we'll program in. Cluster will tell us it does. I'm just being honest. This is what we do. We're POS Uncensored. We cut it straightforward. Use the Windows-based device. Specifically right now, the Surface Go 3. There may be other ones coming out that we're going to recommend. Matt, anything to add to that before you tell me what you think some of the major failures are?
No, I agree with that, Nate, 100%. That's been a big hurdle for us to get over. And there was some confusion at the beginning. That's why everyone was like, oh, they got an Android tablet. Oh, we've got these 6 iPads. Well, we can just use these. And then we run into nothing but issues and then need to be repaired all the time. Let's just avoid that, completely. We're going to do the right solution every time. But just you have to have that second device. And some agents have got upset about that. And that's okay. They just don't have the capability to do an order on the A920 Pro. Okay, other systems can. Cluster's not there yet. Okay, so we're trying to lay it all out there so you guys know. We'll always be honest with you, okay? We'll always be uncensored. So we're going to tell you good, bad, ugly, and we want to make sure you guys are prepared. Setting the right expectations, happy merchant, happy partner, everyone's good.
So what's another major failure?
Yeah. So this is one that we personally have run into a few different times. My team is trying to make sure to stay on top of this to get the correct questions asked and answered. If they're using a Clover and they're used to order and pay on the screen, sign and pay on the screen, that's not available right now at Cluster. Even though we've rolled it out, we know it's great for QSR. The quick service environment, absolutely, Cluster is great. They got a little drive-through, awesome. Drive-through, main station, kitchen printers, it does all that perfectly. But if they want to sign and pay on screen, they don't have an interactive customer display. So don't get yourself caught in saying, oh, yeah, you want to sign a screen? Sure, I'm sure we could do that. No, they can figure it out where they program the little EMV terminal, okay, the chip reader, the A920, if we're sending that out of the A80, to have tip prompt on there when they're putting the card in. But we need to make sure they know that. Some owners are fine with that, and they love it. They're like, yep, absolutely. As long as it can prompt for tip, I'm fine using the pin pad. But others say, no, I don't want that. That's extra paper. I want to be able to sign the screen. Don't put yourself in that bad situation where we're already in a cluster demo, or worse, done with a cluster demo. And that's something that hasn't been discussed. And like I said, my team is good about talking about that on the demo, making sure we know exactly what's needed and not needed. And my team will make sure to let them know it's not an interactive customer display. It's just going to show those totals, and you can prompt for tip on the pin pad. So that's one that I've got, Nate.
Like it. Next one I'll add in is it can do delivery through third-party delivery systems. It does not have built-in delivery features. And I've seen several people say, oh, it can do delivery. You've got to make sure it's clear. It can use Uber Eats. You can use the UEat integration and connect it to Uber Eats and the Grubhub and all the DoorDash and all those, but it doesn't have an internal mapping software. It doesn't have, and if you tell them, hey, it can do delivery, sometimes what the merchant hears is, it does like our hot sauce system where it has an internal, mapping system.
Assign drivers and all that.
Yeah, and you can do all that.
They're doing.
And especially, and I think this, and so make sure you're not you're putting expectations. There are other things maybe, Matt, you can add into that. But I've seen it twice now where somebody said, the merchant comes back and says, oh, I thought I was getting a delivery module, not just being able to use these. And if that's what they want, we have something for them. But you're trying to put us, there's no reason to give them, even show them Cluster if they really want to do their own delivery and do mapping and managing and even like caller ID recognition and things like that go into those systems. We have that in other systems. It's not in Cluster. Don't try to put a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't work.
There it is. I was like, you almost said it earlier. I was like, throw out the square peg in the round hole. We say that all the time. It's too many agents try to do that. And it's like, guys, come on. You're setting yourself up for failure. You don't want to, like you said, with the Olympics, you have one little mistake, especially in something like gymnastics. It costs you everything. If you make a mistake in the POS world, then they don't trust you. They don't want to buy from you. And they're going to tell their friends that this guy gave me some system and he didn't know anything about it, or he didn't do what he said. Don't do that to yourself. Okay? That's what we're here for. Okay? Let the experts help you. So sorry, I was all excited. I saw you make like a square motion. Like,
you're good. And the next step is also make sure that you understand what the needs of your merchant are, but specifically then when it comes to the onboarding, make sure you're aware and set this expectation of the merchant of how the installation is going to happen. That they're going to send somebody to help put all the hardware together. They're going to set it up, but there's a specific way Cluster does it. And when Matt and I could go back in this and helping them understand that there's a soft install, which simply means you get one full terminal and station up and running, and they're going to make sure it's all downloaded and set up. And then there's the full install where they're going to send a person to actually make sure all the stuff is connected and working and interacting together. But they're also not there to make sure that all the wires are run. And you want to make sure that the installation, that you set the expectation. If they have additional needs, like maybe they are they're in an 1800s former, bar, and they didn't originally have electricity, and it's going to be very unique to how they're going to be able to run all the Ethernet cables that they need to run. Think through that stuff. Help your POS Pro, help you make sure you set expectations, get that through. And Cluster does a great job of getting a tech there to make sure all the hardware is set up correctly, which is a lot of our people don't even do that. They would just make the person do it, but also then make sure we set that onboarding and that installation, those expectations correctly. Don't make the major failure, because installation, no matter what, when you're changing from no system to a system or from one system to another, it's a stress. And let's not break it. Let's just make it stressful. We can't take the stress away. It's just going to be. That's what it happens, right, Matt? I mean,
yeah. Well, and when it comes to wiring, guys, don't ever assume anything. You walk in and they've got a micros or Aloha or any system has got Ethernet line. Maybe you see them. You see the internet lines. You're like, okay, great. Still, don't assume that they have all the wiring in the right place, because maybe once you get talking to them, I always ask, it looks like you do have some wiring here. Is this exactly where you want these stations to go? And then I see you've got at least one kitchen printer there. Are you going to need more? Because you want to have that discussion. They might not want the same hardware. And then you're right there to let them know, or our team's there to let them know, okay, now you're going to do a hot side and a cold side. Are you able to run a line? We need to make sure we get an Ethernet line now from this to that, because those all need to be hardware. So just because you see there is Ethernet lines run in some areas, have the discussion with them. Don't get yourself caught where you're doing a soft install, you hook one up, but then you can't complete the full install because Cluster's telling us, well, they didn't have lines run. And that's because they added one more thing they used to have than they had with their old POS, and now they can't finish the install. So it's little things like that just don't ever assume. Get the straight answer, understand what is needed, communicate that with us so that we make sure we order it correctly. If anything, I'd rather have extra things, for them to be prepared for. So
well, let's talk about major failures that put a lot of stress on the installation process is when they have an expectation that there's a piece of equipment that is not on the order form, was not on the contract that they think is coming for some reason. And so major failures, we don't double check and triple check and quadruple check and just check that order form and make sure the contract they signed has the equipment. Some of the major issues, ones I've seen so far, they think they're getting a customer facing display, wasn't on the screen. They think that they're going to have an extra station or maybe a KDS, or that they're going to put in a bump bar, or all these things that may have an expectation that maybe even were somewhat discussed, but somehow didn't make it to the order form. Sometimes it's a mistake on us. So we need to double and check. We're working harder. We're going to even, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to take another review at how we're putting our proposals together and those contracts, so we can make sure that they're double checking. I've even thought maybe we'll go line item by line item and make sure how many, you have 4 stations coming. Is that what your expectation is? But we need to work together and make sure, because what the biggest frustration is you get a shipment of equipment and you have an installation in 4 days, and suddenly you realize that you don't have the customer facing display, or you don't have the KDS, or you don't have XYZ. Mm-hmm. That's a frustrating moment and a major failure in the process when it comes to, getting these installations going and getting these merchants up and running. And it causes frustration. And suddenly, a lot of times what's happening now is they're starting without their full equipment put in, and we're adding it in a week in. And it can be done, and you will work through it. And the best thing I can say about what I've learned with Cluster is I was in Glenwood Springs 2 weeks ago, in Colorado with Danny Shard, and he has a local coffee shop in the heart of Glenwood Springs doing a ton of volume, breakfast lunch place. And I was like, Danny, I want to go see. I took some pictures. You'll see. I'm going to post them on social media, but I took some pictures of their 2-station setup and their kitchen and all that. And Danny's like, oh, I haven't talked to her forever, because she hasn't once they got up and running, it just worked. And so that I hear all the time, but let's get them through that little flexion point. Let's do is make it as smooth, and let's make sure all the equipment are going to be there. And then even that it's a third, just like most POS companies, a third-party company that's pulling the hardware and shipping it to them. They make mistakes. So that's even better, if you can be there on site, or tell the merchant, go through the checklist and make sure everything is there that they already paid for specifically. And then before they pay for it, make sure they're getting all that they want. So,
yeah. Well, another thing, Nate, not on the hardware side, but on the processing side, make sure that you know what percentage is actually on the contract, what they're going to be charging to the customer, whether it's 3.5, 3.75, 4, and then make sure you're double checking it, because they're human, just like everyone is. These are human programmers that are actually programming their menu. So it's the responsibility of the merchant, and you can help them with this to make sure it's programmed correctly. You're seeing the dual pricing, you're seeing the breakdown. All right, that's something that should all be checked and caught before they ever install that POS. Fully installed. If we don't want to get a month down the line, and either you have the percentage wrong from the beginning because you didn't double check with them, or they didn't see it, you didn't see it, you didn't check on the point of sale programming to make sure it's on there. So that's something that we rarely run into, but please cover your own butt. Make sure it's programmed correctly with the right percentage, and that you gave the correct percentage. Yeah. Okay, so that's an easy one that you can track.
Time after time, just make sure double checking everything can be so helpful. We just, and because it's even on, especially for new accounts, a lot of times, sometimes we're putting out a POS and they've been processing with us. So they've already been set up on their merchant side processing or pricing. But making sure if they're doing 4% and it should be 3.8641, and you mess, hopefully just double checking that, because a lot of that will come out at that first month, and you don't want to get that first statement and they're frustrated. Just a quick double check every time, just looking at it one time. It probably takes you 30 seconds just to sit down, think about it, double check, make sure everything's set up right, and boom. Not a major failure, not a stress point, not something that they feel like they need to throw back and do.
Yeah.
So any other major failures that you have come across over the first couple months of managing the cluster process?
You hit on one very important, point, Nate, making sure that you have the hardware. And like you said, we've had where the KDS screens, the kitchen display screens were on delay. No big deal. It was out of cluster control. It was a manufacturer thing. They're on delay. That was relayed to the ISO as well as the merchant. But next thing you know, they're trying to install. And they get upset because where are these KDS? And it's because they never once went through the hardware. They never went through the hardware. They swore they weren't told, but they were told. And next thing you know, they're all upset because they unplugged their old system. Now they can't go live. It's just those little things. That's why I like what you said, like double check the hardware, make sure everything's there. I mean, I got way too much hardware in this office, but you know what? I look at every piece of it. If I get a return, I'm going through exactly if they had a customer screen, receipt printer, kitchen printer, router, every little thing. I need to make sure I got it back, in the return. So I'm walking through my head. Here's exactly their station. Here's their kitchen printer. Here's their access point. Here's their extra handhelds, whatever it might be. Do the same thing. If you want us to ship it to you, just tell us. We've got plenty of offices that do that, and agents that say ship to my house. They're closed during the day, or they're not there Monday and Tuesday. I'm worried no one's going to get it. Just tell us a different shipping address. The business address will still be on there, but we'll send the hardware to a different shipping address if we need to. That way it's protected and you can double check.
Love it.
So,
yeah.
Piggybacking off of you, buddy. That was a good one.
Well, as we close up, I mean, one of the things is just, we've said repeat, check, double check, triple check everything. That just helps so much. But also at the end, the sale is not done when they start processing and, check in. I was just talking to a partner. I would put on as soon as they go up and running, I would always check in the second day, make sure, just a quick call to the owner or the manager or whoever your point of contact was. I just want you to know, here's how you do it. Reminder, this is how you get a hold of cluster support. This is how you get a hold of, just a little quick check-in, and just do that. And then put a reminder a week later to make sure. Now, you may hear something. It's not, they get into a situation, something. You can't train for everything. They have someone come in and want to split the check 10 ways, and they are only trained to how to do it. I forget how many splits they can do, but I know they can do multiple splits. I don't know what it may be, but they may have something come up and they contact you, but they may have something that's just like, I just didn't quite understand that, or they, and helping them and just checking in, it's going to go so much smoother for you if it's you calling in and checking with them, or them just getting to a breaking point where it's like 4 things didn't happen the way they wanted to, and they should have called cluster support, but they didn't. So if you check in and remind them, make sure that you're getting that reputation checked in. It'll help you so much more when it comes to this. Proactive is better than reactive. Even if they if it's a small, I decided I really would like my KDS on the other side of the kitchen. I saw that was one of them that we had. Well, that's something we can proactively work through. And instead of them getting to a breaking point where it's annoying them 10 days in a row, we say, okay, well, let's come up with a plan to fix that. Or a training session or whatever it takes. Proactivity is better than reactivity. Matt, any closing words today?
No. Sorry, I had to turn on my fan. I know I look like this is my Miami shirt, which I wish I was down there, but it just got a little too hot in here. I like everything that you said, Nate. And remember, guys, we're speaking with experience here, okay? Making sure you're putting yourself in the right shoes. What we've experienced, this is not just cluster with other systems too, of making sure we're setting those expectations every single time. Please lean on the POS office. We are here to help you 100% to make sure we schedule those demos. We're going to be on every one. We're going to go through paperwork and quotes with you. Let's ask the right questions. Listen to my team. Okay? Keep your ears open. Listen to my team so that you know what questions to ask. You can ask that next time before it even gets into the lead submission. So that's all. Have some patience. It's a full POS. It takes a little while to install.
Like it. Well, as we close out another POS Uncensored, it is Olympic season. We'll be back with another POS Uncensored next week. But here, Let's go for the gold. Make sure that you're doing the best job you can. Lean on the POS pros. Let's sell some clusters. If you can close 8, 12, 15 clusters, you're going to not only go for yourself, you're going to be able to take your friend or significant other or just get 2 seats in the plane. I don't know what you're going to do. Yeah, but make sure you're going for it. Let's get on that podium come December, and together we'll see everyone together in 2024 down in Mexico selling some clusters because we've not made some of these major failures. Let's do it. On behalf of Matt Proctor, I'm Nate Manahan. We'll see you next time on POS Uncensored. Bye, everybody.
Hi, guys.